The remakes of Pokémon Diamond and Pearl are about to release, and naturally people are curious to see which mechanics will stay alive, what has changed about abilities or attacks or items, and of course the return of many Pokémon that didn't make the cut in Sword and Shield. Besides getting a fresh look on a nostalgic adventure, it's the post-game where the fun actually really starts. With no generations past Diamond and Pearl represented, it will be comfy to complete the Pokédex, and thanks to the redesigned underground and competitions, there surely is more than enough to explore. It's the competitive aspect in particular that I always look the most forward to, since it's just relaxing to raise some strong Pokémon and use them in strategic battles online. From what it appears like, there seem to be no Megas, Dynamax or other fluff from past generations, just pure battles like in the original Diamond and Pearl. And while this might be disappointing for some people, I actually welcome this down-to-earth approach and are excited to see how much the meta will play out with a limited selection of Pokémon and no gimmicks. But as you can read the title of this video, whatever it will be, the state and sort of future of competitive Pokémon is quite unsure. Normally you would expect the newest title to mostly replace the last game sooner or later, and although many people still like to play, for example, Pokémon Auras with all its megas, this change of game is only to be expected. After all, people tend to move on to where the music plays, so obviously I anticipated the same phenomenon here. But the Pokémon company seems to follow a different plan. From the start they announced BDSP alongside Legends Arceus and made it clear that Arceus will be something different and unique for the franchise, the next logical step. Trailers and additional information proved this point by introducing a modified battle system which, for the first time since Red and Blue, actually feels noticeably different and will have an effect on how battles will play out, unlike Megas or Dynamax, which only contributed to the spectacle side of combat. And while this feels like a pretty big deal for the gameplay as well, I never got the impression they want us to play Arceus competitively. Of course it will be possible, and thanks to new regional forms and evolutions, there's a significant solid reason to do so. After all, it would be stupid to automatically ignore the first change of concept in years and at least not try it out a little bit. My rule of principle was always, as long as they don't turn the combat system of Pokémon into some sort of stupid live action hustle, I will always be open to small changes and new experiments. Arceus feels like a proof of concept for the future, which is why I always thought the Pokémon company considered the game as a single player adventure first and foremost, with some classic multiplayer implementations like trading for example. And this seemed extremely clever. Arceus with a focus on single player as a change to try out some stuff for the future, while the remakes remain the safe and classic gathering place for all the folks who love some traditional competitive Pokémon. The future looks different, however. First, they don't plan on continuing ranked battles in the remakes and instead keep them going in Sword and Shield as before. This alone poses several questions. Will Sword and Shield still hold the priority for competitive Pokémon? Do they don't anticipate people to play the remakes in a more serious manner? And what position will Legends Arceus have in this triangle of current Pokémon generations? If you follow the ranked battles in Sword and Shield, you certainly noticed how they removed the ability to Dynamax in the current format and allowed one restricted Pokémon per team. Dynamax is the main feature of Sword and Shield and clearly dominated the meta to an extent like no gimmick ever did. Useless attacks like Fly became suddenly viable thanks to their effect in Dynamax, and because every Pokémon could use this feature at any time, you had to build your team around it instead of only thinking of it. It can be so overwhelming that I actually found Dynamax to be a little too overpowered in singles, but VGC seems to be a completely different story. I never really played doubles, but from what I watched just for fun, it brought in a lot strategic depth because handling a Dynamax Pokémon with a supporter on the field works better than rampaging through the whole team in singles because you missed the timing, for example. So overall, I really welcome the ban of Dynamax in the current format and draw the conclusion that they wanted to get people accustomed to the traditional playstyle again due to the upcoming basic gameplay of the remakes. But as you guessed, this isn't the case, so what's the deal with the split of community among games? Well, the first and most obvious reason is the player base. Sword and Shield sold extremely well even for the series standard and can therefore rely on a strong and devoted player base. In the end, you don't want to throw out over 20 million people just to hope they will go over to remakes that look inferior in gameplay at first glance, right? But this was always the case for Pokémon and never remained a serious concern. Another question is how the three games will behave towards each other. Can we trade missing Pokémon from the remakes to Sword and Shield? What about the new Pokémon? Will there be a general update for Sword and Shield? Of course, this would justify the decision to to keep Sword and Shield alive, since they would get a breath of fresh air as well, but normally I like to move on to a new game. By the time the remakes release, Sword and Shield are 2 years old, and I'm not sure how long the meta keeps being interesting or engaging to play. There was actually a similar case with the Let's Go games. Although they were the first proper HD Pokémon titles in the franchise, people continuously played Sun and Moon competitively. The simple reason for that were Let's Go's streamlined mechanics, and while of course there was a small community playing the game more serious, it's nothing compared to what we are used to. I can tell because I dabbled into the scene a little as well, but again just a small world for its own. The remakes of Diamond and Pearl are a different case, since they feature attacks, abilities, IVs and all that stuff as well. At least I think and hope so, I didn't spoil myself. So all in all, the competitive situation can be described as this. The main focus remains in Sword and Shield, while the remakes and Arceus probably will have a niche competitive scene that enjoys the benefits of a more traditional and down-to-earth meta. And this is okay, since everyone can play whatever game they prefer without worrying their favorite will go down. This is just the case for future Pokémon due to the more and more demanding production costs. It's just not possible anymore to release a new game every year, so focusing on one huge Pokémon experience and developing smaller titles like remakes meanwhile is just going to be the forthcoming norm. If anything, you have to consider this approach as a chance for something that got lost in the years. In the early days, you could always connect the corresponding generation to whatever console title was currently popular. Trading Pokémon with Stadium or Battle Revolution or Colosseum and XD after raising them beforehand was just something that should die out in the day the Switch was announced, but the remakes and Arceus are a great opportunity to relive this gameplay style. I'm not sure what and if there's going to be a deeper connectivity, but as long as they form one unit while Sword and Shield remains the competitive main square, people will keep playing. Even though I'm kinda done with Sword and Shield's meta a few months ago, I look forward to how the meta of the remakes will develop, since it just feels nice to get a game without any major gimmicks. But what are your thoughts on the topic? Hopefully I could bring in some light into something that no one cared about besides me, and are you still interested in playing Sword and Shield? As long as they increase the timer in single battles again, there should be nothing to worry about, right? Right?